Just check it goes live for us. I'm hoping this is live. Extremely hoping. I'm gonna just quick check the chat. Hopefully we'll wait for the first person in chat to be like, oh, we can hear you. I know I really need a second screen really badly. Okay, Memis has confirmed we are actually live. So yeah. Hello. Oh no, I've got it open. I'm hearing reverb. Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to Disgustingly Resilient podcast once again on this most gracious of days. Apparently I'm a little quiet, so let me just see if I can turn that up a bit. Apparently I'm at max I can go, so you might have to just turn your PC up. Hopefully it's not too bad. Um, I've got all my settings currently set to max, which is surprising because I have a big gob. Um, but yeah, welcome to another sort of episode. Obviously, a big day today. Today I'm joined by a special guest, Mr. Deathguard Dave from Vanguard Tactics. Do you want to introduce yourself, mate?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Hey, everyone. Yeah, I'm David Turner, called Death God Dave on various platforms and on the back of the jersey. I've been playing for about 2 and a bit years, but I exclusively and only play Death Guard. I've not veered off of it in the entire time. Um, I've played 3 to 5 super majors a year, a couple 3 RTTs a year. So I've joined it and got straight on the competitive scene. So yeah, it's been great seeing the work Aidan and the guys have been doing. And I joined Vanguard Tactics probably year and a bit ago, as they're kind of at the time, yeah, Death Guard player, but no one else was in the team was really doing it to give us that breadth across the group for the academy and both on the competitive scene.
Yeah, so it's good to have you join me, mate. Obviously, there's quite a lot to talk about today. Will, unfortunately, isn't
Why did
here.
something happen?
Go on, sorry.
I said, why did something happen today?
Surprisingly, something did actually happen today. It's called the Reckoning, and hopefully it's the, the first of many that's going to happen. Although
Oh, yeah.
maybe we don't need more after this one. We'll see. Um, yeah, so Will was supposed to join us today. Unfortunately, I did this thing called assuming he would just automatically, know I'm talking about this. Unfortunately, it's not the case. So he's currently testing games and playing games. So yeah, unfortunately, he's not actually here for this one. Now, apparently, people are having a bit of trouble hearing you, mate. So I'm
Okay.
gonna see. It shouldn't be on the thing because audio's all set to max for you.
Should I turn mine up? Hold on.
Go.
Okay, that volume's up now.
Oh yeah, that is okay. Okay, people,
Yeah,
is that
down a bit.
better? We'll have to see what they say. I can obviously mess with it. Um, we'll just carry on for now because obviously there's a bit of delay
Okay.
on the chat. If that's a bit too much, guys, let me know. I can obviously turn that down.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you said that people are saying that's better, so
Right.
hopefully that's good. It's blowing my ears out a little bit, but I will endure as more as a favoured son of Mortarion for the stream, eh? So,
You got pinned down a little bit, so hopefully it won't kill you now, Aidan.
there we go. Sweet. So yeah, obviously, today was the day that everyone's sort of been waiting for. Balance update for Warhammer 40k, and I don't think we're in a, you know, I don't think we'd be amiss to say that 40k 10th edition has had a bit of a rough start, hasn't it, bud?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I certainly know that from going into the first RTT I played in of the first game I played as 10th, and going into it with I think you've talked about it, Aidan, a bit of a ninth mindset still for that first proper game into it, and yeah, ran straight into Custodies and Eldari in rounds 2 and 3 after hammering World Eaters, and yeah, that was a real wake up.
A bit of a false confidence from the first game.
100%. I basically chased World Eaters around the map. They hid for 3 turns because I had 21 D6 anti-infantry flamers. Uh, and then that obviously did not work into Wraith Knights and Custodies.
Unfortunately, it does not work into Wraith Knights. It does
No.
work into Custodies, but the AP is not really there. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
we'll see about
Yeah, we'll see about that.
that. So we could talk about the core rule change. We know what everyone's here for.
Yeah.
Everyone's here for the Death Guard changes, so we'll talk about the Death Guard changes first. We'll come back to all this because obviously it does impact the game, how it's played, and sort of how we fit into that. But I think for right now, we'll just, stop beating around the bush. We'll get straight into the meat and potatoes. So, first things first, we didn't just get points changes. Points changes are good, but we actually got a bit of more love than that. And to say a little bit is probably an understatement. We gained a new detachment rule. So, this isn't an army rule. So, if future detachments do come out, this won't carry over to those ones. But what this one does is, in addition to our sticky objectives, which we retain, we don't lose that. Um, before the battle, but after we know our opponents, so you're not locked in at the list building stage. You basically are going to get to choose one of these three abilities. I'll just give it a quick zoom in. Hopefully, people can read it a bit better. Um, and these become in addition to our -1 toughness aura. So the first one we've got, Skull Swim Blight. I'm going to paraphrase so we don't have to read it word for word. Basically, every enemy unit within contagion range is going to be -1 ballistic skill and weapon skill. We'll get into why the wording of it not being a hit roll is important, but it's very good. The next one is Rattle Joint Ague. What? Agu? Ague? I don't know.
Yeah,
They're just
that'll do.
making up words at this point, I'm pretty sure. So, while enemy units are in contagion range, worsen the save characteristic of models in that unit by 1, and Scabrous Soul Rot, which is while an enemy unit is within contagion range of this unit, worsen the leadership and OC characteristics of models in that unit by 1. So, I'm going to let you take this one. When you
Okay.
saw this rule, what was your initial reaction?
So massive surprise. I expected us to get points changes mostly. I think I reread it about 6 times to make sure it was what I thought it was. Um, Definitely, it was a very big surprise, and I definitely gravitated to the first two. But I think before I get into that, what I would say is, and it's important for all the Death Guard players out there, is that when you infect an objective marker, it says in the description of it that it's to be treated as a unit from your army. So it will gain these sicknesses as well when you choose one at the start of the battle. So that's a really important thing to remember. And if your opponent says, "Well, it's not a unit from your army," you can refer back to the detachment rule. Um, I would say that out of these two, I was definitely gravitating, like I said, to the top two. And I think initially, whilst I thought, "Hey, worsening everybody's safe throw is amazing," personally, I think the ballistic skill, weapon skill, neutering is going to be really brutal.
Yeah, I think I had to agree on that one. Oh my god, someone actually just tipped me five. Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Prometheus Williams.
Thank you,
Oh,
very kind.
thank you very much. I will use that to buy a pot of paint to paint up my Hellbrute that I'm definitely putting in every list now. um,
What about you, Aidan? What did you think?
yeah, I won't lie. When I saw this and I was a happy bunny. I won't lie. I used to tell people like having for people who don't know in ninth edition there was a contagion bonus called Ferric Blight, which was a around a single character in your army. He had an aura of an extra AP, which is effectively the same as what Rattlejoint Ague is. Probably Ague's a little better, just because of interactions. But I always used to say to people because people used to say, "Oh man, this thing should be army wide." I'd be like, "That would be massively broken." And now I've got it.
Yeah.
So it that the damage output for Death Guard because I've always said like when it comes to Death Guard and the whole brawling playstyle at the moment punishing people can be a little flimsy like compared to what it used to be. People come in close and you normally want to hit them back and we can hit back quite hard, but sometimes like AP2 on Death Shroud it's not the old AP3 whereas now it
No.
basically we're back at that level again. So it's really nice. It really gives us that impact. But I think I had the same reaction as you did. I think I was my eyes were all googly at this one, but then the more you start to think about the -1 weapon skill and -1 ballistic skill, that's dirty. That gets so dirty when you start putting it in combinations with other things.
And that's the key thing is I think a lot of the complaints the community seemed to have was around this like lack of synergies, and that is like the ultimate foundation.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And I know we'll address the elephant in the room right now. There is no durability buff in this data slate, and I
No.
understand that a lot of people are a lot of people are happy about this change, but a lot of people are upset. There's no feel, no pain, no damage reduction. And I'll say this again. I've said it before. I understand why you're upset about the lack of durability, and I totally get it. But I'm kind of happy we're going away from Death Guard being all about durability because when we have an army that's based around durability, you only exist in 2 points in the game. You're either too
Yeah.
durable and nothing can kill you, and you make the game miserable for everyone else while you win easily and don't do anything particularly clever, or the game outdamages your durability, in which case your durability means jack shit. Um, so
I, and
yeah,
I'd also argue that you are that skull squirm blight belt is making you more durable as well because
oh
you're
yes,
forcing your opponent to have to roll higher every single time.
Yeah, and we'll probably get into a bit of where the toxic bit of that trait comes into in a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
But right now, whereas like -1 damage effects and feel no pain, your opponent can't really interact with too much. There's a little bit where like maybe they can, if you have 2 wounds, they put 3 damage into it, so they ignore the -1 basically and still kill a guy. But it's still not really something they have full control over to sort of influence. Whereas these have a bit of counterplay. Again, we'll get into the toxic trait because there's one of these that really lacks counterplay in a certain type of damage output from an opponent or certain army archetypes. But certain fast armies can obviously jump around the -1 ballistic skill. Aura, people can obviously understand if they get close, their armor's going to come down, so they can start committing more resources to make sure when they come
yeah.
into a unit, they shoot it, so it's gone, it's dead. They can use movement to space out, being tagged easily. There's a lot of sort of things around that. Again, we'll get into the sort of more negatives, the bits that I'm not too happy with. Even though it's very good, I'm
Mm,
one of those people that doesn't just look at my army and go, everything's green for me. That means it's good for everyone else. Like
yeah.
sometimes you can have to look at your own army and go, maybe that's a bit much. And I know that's probably going to cause me to get like executed summarily by like a lot of people. So someone in the chat's just asked, is this for both normal and invul saves it affects? So no, because it only affects the save characteristic. It's the actual save characteristic on their sheet, not
On the
the
save
invulnerable.
sheet.
God, imagine if it was invulnerable.
Well, that was funny. Well, that was the reaction in the Vanguard chat earlier as well. Like somebody was like, "So is this hitting invulnerable saves as well?" And like, everyone, I think there was a collective intake of breath, and then everyone went, "No."
Yeah, I mean, if it was invulnerable saves, then I think we probably would like be turbo broken at that point.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
you walk near a knight and it's like stuck on a 6 pinwheel. That's just grim.
No, no.
Um,
And I think your point there's really good about, with these, you've got they are great, like you say, but we've also got to put people in contagion range.
yeah, it's not just a free rule.
It's not a
Like we don't
blanket.
just get to flip summit to a 6 or do what we want. There is that impact of us having to go out there. So a couple more questions in chat. We got what's the best loadout for a Death Guard Hellbrute? We'll get onto that in a minute because we're going to talk about how
Yeah,
the Hellbrute's probably going to be quite a staple. Um, I think anyway. I'm going to test it out first. It's still a bit expensive,
no,
but
I'm with
again,
you.
we'll
Yeah.
get to that. And a fella's saying, will this hit Trajan? Do you want to take this one away?
Yeah, so Trajan has basically got the same ability that Morty's got, but for the group he's attached to. So he can't modify his characteristics. So Trajan is not going to be hit by this.
Yeah, unfortunately. So there is
Yeah,
there is one model in the game that still refuses, and also the mirror matchup's quite funny because
the
we
mirror match is going to be.
none of this works on either of us.
All you've got to hope in the mirror match is that one of you chose save characteristic modifier, and the other person chose -1 weapon skill, -1 damage, or it's just going to be stupid. If you've
Yeah,
both taken -1 ballistic skill, weapon skill, just flip a coin. You'll be there forever.
yeah, and if one of you hasn't taken mortarion, then you're just gonna bully that person.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, you're done.
welcome, hi Don Houston, welcome to the chat, mate. Good to have you here. I've been talking to you obviously a lot about this, and I know you're of the same mindset. You're like, I'm ready to go and start crushing people. So yeah, obviously this is obviously a great rule. Um, I'm super happy that I think it's very thematic to the army
Yeah,
with the whole. I like the angle they're going for the more like debuffing disease pestilence route rather than like I said
definitely.
just being tough. Um, Now one thing we'll address it in the room here because we want to start staying a positive, so we'll get the negative out of the way. And
No
it's
problem.
something that has been shared by your fellas in Vanguard Tactics, and it totally makes sense when you talk about it. And that is the effect of Skull Squirm Blight when it's combined with other abilities that minus hit rolls, such as Typhus's
Mm,
Aura. Nurgling allies also give -1 to hit to any unit in engagement range, and the effect that this disproportionately has on armies like World Eaters and Blood Angels, because as we said before, where you have the ability to play around the ballistic skill reduction aura, there is no way to escape a weapon skill reduction. You have to be in melee,
right.
which is 100% in contagion range, and doing that kind of can just force people to be -2 to hit in combat, and that's
Yeah.
really a feels bad for some armies, especially like orcs or something. Anything that hits on a 4-up weapon skill.
Addictive, yeah, that's going to be it's going to be horrible. And then as we talked about earlier, and then if that unit they're going into is Death Shroud and it is being led, and someone tries to hit it with something higher than Strength 6, then they're also -1 to wound.
Yeah, so you got like -2 to hit, -1 to wound, potentially -1 damage. Can be a feel bad. Now Don is right. They do have the option to bring guns. Um, And yeah, you can still try and
And
shoot
they
away those
will.
problem units. Yeah, they will, and that's the thing. It will force people to not be. It punishes heavy melee skew, but I do understand
Yeah.
how that is can still sometimes be a big feels bad, and it might cause us to become what the custodies just were to the game. Two melee
Yeah.
armies, which I don't want because anyone that played against custodies, it was ass. Just like knowing they're gonna fight first, unless you manage to make them fail battle shock or something like that. It's not fun. Um, yeah. Any other points for you, mate?
What did you? I guess I look. Listen, I wasn't expecting three top draw like killer combinations, but I do think that the third one, the Scabrous Soul Rot, is definitely the weakest of the three. I think we've got ways to kind of Overwatch units that are trying to come onto points. We've got Battle Shot we can force with the PPCs. Um, that one definitely stood out as a bit of a filler. I think I don't think I can really see many situations where, or if any, where I'm going to take that one over either of the other two.
Yeah, I think the last one probably just needed a little. Yeah, it's I don't see really a situation even if you're against something like Gaunt Swarm, that's probably like the
Yeah,
best use you can see for this thing, where they're not really gonna have the output to really hurt you anyway. So maybe in that scenario, giving them the -1 OC is pretty good, but it's definitely a very sort of like niche like application of the rule. And I wouldn't. I think that's definitely one that even like I said, even I came into that matchup against the Gaunts. I'm still probably looking at the School Certain
yeah,
Blight, just in case I get charged by 20 Hormagaunts. Now they're hitting me
exactly.
on fives.
Yeah,
It's
I think
very
yeah, I
niche.
think the top point should have probably been something like reduce battle shock test by an additional one or something, or like that would have been maybe a bit more useful, but than than I think just leadership down. But I don't know. Yeah, I think that just wanted to see whether you thought the same thing on that one.
Yeah, like it's cute though, because it does open up some, like we said, I'll talk about force synergy. Gives Noxious Blightbringer maybe a little more play, 'cause now you can get -3 leadership on people. There's a very niche situation. I was wondering if it's actually worth taking against Necrons, because damage output into
Yeah,
Necrons isn't too bad anyway, because Lich Guard are 3 up, 4 ups, so AP1 is all you need. But being able to battle shock them stops reanimation protocols. It also means you can then battle shock them, go into combat, epic challenge the Cryptek out of the unit, kill him, and because he's died in this phase and they're still battle shocked, he can't spend the command point to resurrect it. And then once the turn's
mm,
over and that fight's over and he hasn't resurrected him, he can't bring him back. It's like locked out at that point. So a niche again, but potential. You never know. Um,
mm,
it's a weird one though. It is a weird one. I don't think it's anywhere near the power level of the other two. Um, yeah. Just gonna quickly chat again. So we've got stacking the -1 to hit and -1 ballistic skill is a good rule. Yep, it is going to be very strong. Aiden, I need to contact you. How can I achieve this? I'm in Facebook on DeathGuard Facebook groups, Aiden Smalley. Discord, Nurgle's Mansion. I'll try put a link in later. Or even message, leave a comment below. I'll try and reach out to you. So DeathGuard
yeah.
Bellboy is becoming meta. I mean, I'd love to see it. It's a
Yeah, I mean, it definitely opens up. We will get into points in a bit, but that also just that does start to go as they're playing with those other Plague Marine characters now. But yeah, it's going to be this. Aiden and I were talking about this earlier. This has opened up the points mix plus these. There was really only kind of a few routes you could have gone down from the start of 10th with Death Guard. It felt like to have some success, and now I mean, there's just like the combos you can build now are just off the chart.
Yeah, it really has opened up our sort of like build variety. So what we'll do quickly is we'll very quickly skim over the rest of the factions, but then we'll go into points. 'Cause obviously, we want to keep this Death Guard focus. So, but like we'll go now straight into Devastating Wound Change. So for those who
Mm.
haven't read it, basically Devastating Wounds are no longer mortal wounds. Instead, it is just an attack that cannot be saved by invulns, saving throws of any kind. So you still get feel no pains, etc. But it does mean that damage will not spill over as mortal wounds do. This is brilliant because it means units like 10-man Blightlord bricks are not just going to get evaporated by a couple lucky sixes off like a Wraith Knight or something like that. I think this overall, even outside Death Guard, is just a positive change for the game. I'm sure
Really good for the
you'll
game.
know Devastating Wounds. They're oppressive, weren't they, mate?
Yeah, yeah, it's very impressive. I mean, you could lose so much to it, and it's great now that the units are being used to kill the right things in the game.
and obviously as a faction we didn't really have too much of it. So this
Mm.
changed, like it changes. I think it's just Mortarion, isn't it, who has his spell with Devil Wounds on it, and that's like it. So um, doesn't really affect us in a negative way. Although yeah, it is very funny against Custodes, and everything that upsets Custodes makes me laugh. So. Next one, free stratagems being limited to battle tactics stratagems only, so it's limiting the pool of stratagems they can use them on. We don't have any free CP costs, so
No.
this really doesn't affect us in any way. It affects our opponents, so anything that
Yeah.
hurts them is good for us, so we're happy with that.
Level the playing field a bit more. It was one of the big gripes of going, someone just being like, "Oh, and I'm doing that for free,"
Yeah,
or "and I'm doing that again." Like that was a bit of a. I always thought that actually that was a bit of a feel bad. I know we've talked about feel bad the other way, but that certainly was something I a little bit internally felt playing across the table from armies going, "Oh, that doesn't cost me a CP. Oh, I'm going to do another one."
yeah, especially when you're paying like 2 CP for a disgustingly resilient, and they're like, I'll just do it for
Yeah.
free. It's
Too
like, oh,
soon.
great. Vect is also limited to battle tactic stratagems. That's good for us because it frees up our heal can't be vected, our cloud of flies can't be vected, and boil blight can't be vected. And quite often people would try and vect my cloud of flies, so having that
Definitely.
safe from vect is a very nice change. Overwatch changes. So, do you want to go for this one, mate?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious really big one, big red writing, no more being overwatched by Titanic units. Really, really huge. So yeah, no more getting just blasted by a million guns on a Tyrant or some other huge vehicle. No more Baneblades doing it to you or anything else. It's going to be really good. The other big one is you have to be able to see the unit you're overwatching. So no more indirect Overwatch, which is another really strong one. They're really good changes, I think, to it. And whilst they're not reinventing it, it's straightforward and common sense.
Yeah, I'm happy with these changes as well. Like you said, just the fact that Titanic units could be very oppressive. I feel a little sorry for like the Tyrant because he's now got this big flame run, doesn't really get to use it in Overwatch. But
Yeah,
at the same time, that thing being sat in the middle of the board, it kind of gave you like this big like 36-inch bubble of just you can't move past this thing.
yeah.
So it's probably is for the better of the game. Don Houston, yes, that's a good point. Biologist Putrefy does give us a free grenade stratagem, baby.
Yeah, sorry, yes, John, you're all right. I think I used and I took him in the first game of 10th, and then realised that Plague Marines were not the right thing to be taking, and sadly never he hasn't come out the cupboard since. But
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
we'll see about that one though. Next
Yeah,
one, a change to Insane Bravery. So the only change from this one is, um, in the old way,
two changes.
you did your test, I believe, first, didn't you?
Yeah, so you used to be able to roll the test and then decide to use it. You've now got to declare you're using the strat before you roll the dice. And the second one,
The second. Oh, what's the second change? Oh, is it? What am I
once the
missing?
battle.
I genuinely thought it was already that way anyway. Oops. See, I'm still an idiot at times. I thought it was already once per battle. So okay, so yeah, once per battle, and basically, yeah, you have to declare it before you roll. So you have to make the conscious decision whether to
Yeah,
risk the roll and get battle shocked, or to just not even roll it and just be like, yeah, I'm free. Because at the moment, being able to roll it, have a fairly good chance at succeeding it anyway. And then
yeah,
in the odd instance that you did fail it, you just like, oh, 1 CP. So it made battle shock feel really bad. So a nice
yeah,
little change to battle shock. Battle shock is a mechanic I want to see take off a bit more, and I think this is a good step in the right direction to help it do that.
definitely.
Ruins towering models can now basically touch onto terrain and shoot through it. Again, it's more of a night thing. I don't obviously it'd be important to play against. We'll get into that at some point, but not too worrying for us as an army. Um, Custodians, get fucked.
That's what they should have just written there in red.
Yeah. So Custodians are now capped at 5-man units on the shield guard, so no
Yeah.
big 10-man bricks of brainless walking towards you. Um,
No, no more three fight firsts.
Yeah, no more free fight first because that is now an epic deed stratagem, which can,
Mm,
as we said before, can no longer be made free because it has to be battle tactic. Wardens are capped at. Are they just 4 to 5?
yeah.
Oh, so you can't take like weird freemans anymore and stuff.
Nope.
Oh, okay,
They've
cool,
changed, they've changed the bottom. They've changed the bottom tier as well.
nice. Okay,
Yeah.
sweet. So
But then,
and then the bikes are locked at 3 as well, so you can't go any higher. So they really, it seems like they really didn't want big squads of like custodes, because to be honest, it made it way too efficient for like strat usage and stuff. So I'm happy with this. I'm so sick of.
Yeah.
Again, I played against free custody players at Leeds. If I see another 10-man shield guard block, I'm going to scream. So I'm very.
Honestly, it was so hard to run into. I mean, the other one is, I mean, and they've still got Alaris who are, tough as anything. But
Yeah,
I mean, you just run into any of those blocks and it's just unkillable. Well, it was.
yeah, it was a pain. I mean, I'm not unkillable. I don't know about that.
No, no, not until I'm more meant like not the in the kind of previous editions way of being like, right,
Yeah,
well, I'm
yeah,
going to go into that and do it. You're not getting just like, right, well, I'm fight first regardless. Yeah, you can't. I can re-roll because you're being led by, if you're being led by a character, I'm re-rolling my wound rolls. I'm hitting on twos. Like it was,
it was
yeah,
obnoxious.
it
But
was very obnoxious.
I don't think they're as bad as people are making out. People are screaming like it's the end game for custodians. I don't think it is. But
It's not.
I will very much, I'm happy to see them crying a little bit because
Yeah, I think they really suffered from being at the event that Stuart Black went to and sat and watched the Custodies players just putting bricks of 10 in the middle and going like, well, I think you talked about it in a previous podcast about that you could just build that list with 33 models and
yeah,
then just basically go and win an event.
yeah, like you could win most of your games by just like going against people, putting them on 3 points, and just being like, yeah, deal with it. And some armies just can't. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, I don't like those kind of designs of armies. I don't think they're interesting. I don't think they're fun. Um, yeah, but anyway, that hopefully is now fixed. So we're back to playing the real thinking Custodes players now, which is slightly
yeah,
scary as well. The next change, Admech, they got slightly better saves.
yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice little
Really
buff.
good for them. Yeah,
Is it enough to drag them up? Not sure. We'll see. It's definitely not on the level that we got, but it's a good change. I'm happy. They shouldn't
yeah,
have had T-shirt saves. They are Skatari.
exactly.
Um, Eldar probably people are a bit surprised. This is like all it is, but this is actually a very big good one.
It is.
Phantasm is probably the most broken stratagem ever made. That's how I feel anyway. I don't know about you.
It was one of the most single annoying things in the Eldari game that I played. I knew I was going to get hammered in that first 10th game, but then I got to a point where I was like, got your avatar, now you're done, and he was like, no,
Hmm.
and that's a feel bad.
Yeah, Phantasm was just a huge feel bad. So now the change is capped to infantry units only. So no more Phantasm in bloody Wraith Knights or avatars or anything
Yeah,
like that. So and the
great.
the Eldar infantry are nowhere near as bad as the rest. So
No, I don't mind if one of those wants to disappear, but because it can be killed other ways. But when you've got something as tough as the Avatar or Mithrain or the Incarn, and that's just able to just disappear off you at any point. Yeah,
yeah.
it's not good.
Agents of the Imperium exaction squads. I am glad about this because I hate these kind of units which are just from a random box set, from some random off thing game, and they become such a meta staple. And then they're on eBay for 90 quid a squad. And if you can't get some, then you're
Yeah,
basically like at a massive disadvantage. I just don't think those things are like healthy for not even just the game but the consumer.
yeah,
So I'm glad. I know night players are probably again crying about this because it does suck. Like it was nice to give them a cheap unit to like do objectives with, but I mean, you've always got guardsmen, What was it, Loyal 32 back in the day? Let's get back to that.
yeah. But there should be other ways around it.
Yeah,
You shouldn't need to do that.
that's what I mean. You shouldn't have to rely on this like weird, obscure unit to be able to play your game. They should fix that if that is an issue for you. Deathwatch, yeah, big nerfs. All their effects here basically now, strapped to bolt weapons only. Probably
Yeah,
the intended thing anyway. I imagine this is probably what the designers had in their head.
I think it was. Yeah,
Um, it's a big nerf though, I won't lie. Big damage output nerf. I don't know too much about Deathwatch, and I'm not the kind of channel that'll sit here and talk about shit I don't know. So sorry, I'm
yeah.
gonna go past that one a bit. Do you want to take
Um,
Gene still a cult and do you want me to
yeah,
start playing the violin?
yeah,
Na,
yeah.
na, na,
Fan of this.
na.
No more instantly bringing back everything on the table. You've actually now you've got a good chance to fail doing it now. It's really, I think it's really important. Obviously, it depends on what round kind of you're in, but they've also what they have given though is I think the uh, what was it in the second section, the outrider gangs used to be set up within 6, they can now be set up within 9, but
Okay.
they've got so that's a little bit of it for it, but I'm just pleased that yeah, you now just can't bring everything back, and just you haven't got to chase it to the corners of the table to make sure they can't put blips down again. I
Yeah.
think it's a really important. I think it's a really important change. That army is still going to be strong. It's
Yes.
still got loads of great tools, and on a lot of times, you are going to roll the dice and get them back. But
Yeah.
it now makes it a. I think it now makes it a kind of real chance in the game where that roll of the dice could actually really impact whether you're gonna turn that game around and win it, or actually whether you're going to fail it and then that's the end, rather than just well, it is coming back.
Yeah, and it also just it stops stupid sloppy play. At the current moment, you can just throw away one of like a
Yeah,
you
yeah,
bring a demo
yeah, yeah.
charge unit in, throw it away. It don't matter. It's gonna it's
Doesn't matter.
100% coming back. So now you have to at least think about the possibility that it doesn't come back. And I think that's just better because imagine if we had infinitely respawning Death Shroud, that wouldn't be
Yeah,
fun. So I don't think infinitely respawning units like if they did no damage, I would be fine with them infinitely coming back. But
yeah. You just had to battle through them.
yeah, but these things hit like trucks, so you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Grey Knights. I don't know what this stratagem does. I've
Big,
never played
big
against Grey
points.
Knights.
Yeah, big
Um,
points decrease. They got like 20% points decrease across the board.
okay, nice.
That's pretty much the main thing. So they are. I don't know if you played them recently, but I did a couple of weeks back, and my opponent put his models out on the table, and he had a box with some other models that his case or whatever. And I was like, "Cool. So what's in reserve?" And he was like, "No, no, this is it." And it was like looking at a custodian's army with none of the abilities. And the game was done in turn two.
Oof, that's a bit grim. So
Yeah.
hopefully
So this
this,
is really good for them.
yeah, hopefully it's a nice change. Hopefully whatever this is nice, and whatnot. Although I think this is to stop them getting it for free, maybe. So it's probably not a nice thing, but I'm sure the points are quite nice for them. Um,
Yeah, definitely good thing.
Imperial Knights. Now this is good for us as Death Guard because one problem Death Guard can have sometimes is killing vehicles, and
Mhm.
this basically is quite a large nerf to the knights. Basically, they're large knights. The bondsman abilities are no longer given to both the big and the small knight. It is just the small knight that benefits now. It's a bit of a brutal nerf, one I didn't see coming. I won't lie. But um, technically their loss is our gain.
Yeah,
I feel a bit bad for it because one of my best mates plays knights and he's a bit gutted because that is a quite a nasty nerf. Um, but I don't think they're out of the game just yet. You
no,
know, like a lot of these strats as well going to two CPs a bit rough. Um, but Knights are one of those armies. I mean, I don't particularly, even though he's my mate and I love him to bits. I don't really. I'm not going to feel like Knights shouldn't be in the game because they are in the game now, and I would
yeah,
dread
yeah,
for
yeah,
anyone to be told their army's no longer playable. But
100%.
I don't like armies like this because it's so skew, and sometimes there's not even a game to be had because they just roll you over. So
Yeah,
to see that, I would rather knights always be on the brink of underpowered, and people rely on the skill to make up for that, rather than them being in the position where like everyone has because everyone can get knights super easy as well. So when knights are strong, you just see so many goddamn knights, and it just makes the
yeah,
game
yeah.
miserable.
But also, this doesn't, and this still doesn't stop knights sitting back and unleashing horrendous amounts of firepower at you.
Hmm.
In the early stages of the game, and maybe doing well with it, and still could force your opponents to go right. Are you gonna deploy on the line, roll for first, and try and get to me? Like it still has got play, but I agree. It's just not as easy as it. I don't mean that because there are some really good, and I'm not disparaging any Knights players out there, because there's some great. I've played against some great ones personally, but yeah, this makes it. I just think it makes it less easy and less of a foregone conclusion, so that you actually feel like you can be in the game and not this is going to be overturned too.
Yeah, like it's like I said, anything that sort of like tones them down sort of makes it feel a bit more of a game, especially with the armies that can struggle, like Sisters, who are very bad anti-tank at the moment.
Yeah,
It's just better for the game overall, I think. But yeah, Leagues of Votan, surprisingly less than I thought they'd get, but not exactly horrible. So basically,
yeah.
at the start of the battle, they can now pick 4 units instead of one, which is a big change. Numbers are very nice. That will start the game with 2 judgment tokens on. This is nice. It's a good change for them. Votan's my second army. I don't think it's enough. Um, but I also think they suffer from just a small codex as well at the moment. It's hard to fix an army that has like 5 units. But it's decent. Does it affect how we play against them? Not mega particularly. Obviously, just be more careful of the amount of units that they're putting tokens on and play around that. Part of that is I don't think it changes too much for us. Do you?
No, no, not really. I will say I was surprised like that they didn't get something similar, or not similar. I don't mean in that way. They didn't get more of a. a rule or some kind of a big obvious improvement because technically they're in a worse spot than we were.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I was surprised they didn't get a bit more.
Yeah, I thought maybe they'd get some like void armor back to sort of like keep them feeling a bit more elite.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is what it is. And last but not least, Space Marines Desolation squads are now capped at five
Okay.
man units. Um, People out there, if you bought 20 Desolated Marines and you're running two 10-man bricks, and
Yeah.
now you're like, that's it, my army's done. I'm gonna tell you now, you were playing on a crutch. And you losing this will eventually make you a better player, mister.
Yeah.
You was relying on this too much, and it is time to learn to play the game.
Someone at my local club was just running that and basically just going, well, I'm going to oath that Baneblade, and then that's gone. And
Yep.
I'm going to and literally came back week after week after week and played some people and was just using, like you say, just using the Desolation Marines to form the whole backbone of his entire. Well, it wasn't really a strategy. It was use 2 units of Desolation Marines to kill everything.
Yeah, it's and the thing is, and also the thing about it is, when you come across people that have answers to that unit, you lose. Like, so all you're really doing with units like that was basically just crushing people that were already you were going to crush, if that makes sense. Like, or you at least had the ability to crush. So
Yeah.
this change does not make Desolation Marines bad. I still think they're a great unit. They're still good, but you can't just put 10 and a stupid apothecary on it, reroll everything, and especially with the Overwatch change, now you can't shoot indirect Overwatch. This unit just feels a lot more fair, a lot more where it should be, rather than the crutch that it currently is.
Yeah, really pleased. I was really pleased to see that. I think it's just I think and to your point, I think it's good for Space Marine players as well, just to
Yeah,
do other things.
it's list diversity for them. Like sometimes when a unit is so strong and so powerful and so sort of like no offense, the kind of brainless Desolation Marines, you can just point at anything and deleted it.
Yeah,
Um, it kind of skews your own internal balance of a book because as much as we sit here and rag on people that were using them as that in that amount, at the same time, did you really have a reason not to use that unit?
well, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Whereas now potentially you hopefully do. So that's all the rules changes. So I'm not going to go through all the points for every single army because we will be here until next year. All we're going to care about is Death Guard.
Yeah,
Now, just to note, for those who don't know, every number that's in red means the unit has been changed. Okay. So as you can see, a lot of armies, got some red, got some, grey, not been changed, stuff like that. Um, so I was a little bit in shock when I looked at the Death Guard one, and it was basically all red. And a little more shocked when I think we both realised none of it is upwards. It all went down. What was your first reaction to the points change?
that someone at GW has been drinking lunchtime a bit hard. Um, it was, but obviously they were a Death Guard fan, so that was good. Yeah, I was. We were both like, oh, hang on, Morty's 45 points down. Oh, hang on, this is a bit down, and then I kind of then went meticulously through this afterwards instead of browsing some data sheets on the app and was like, wow, it's all down. And I think you and I just pinged WhatsApp message back and forth going, this has dropped, this has dropped, this has dropped.
When I saw Marty drop out, I was like, what? I was like,
Well, like I said to you, I went straight to Plague Burst Crawlers after that and was like, they're down 10 as well each. Well,
yeah,
that's 30 extra points straight there. Morty, that's 75 points up. Brilliant.
it's mental. So for those who don't know, my list, I've talked about it in minute past. I'm not going to list it all now, but my list that I've been taking to events, when I loaded it up in the app, has dropped about 200 points. So that is 200 points spare. Plus, I'm probably going to drop the Chaos Spawn because he didn't go down enough to keep him in compared to the rest of the
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm basically looking like 260 points to play around with, and oh my god, the choices. So let's start at the top. So all the Virions went down. Par the Plague Surge. What? Why do they hate this guy?
They're just determined no one's ever going to play him.
He's a cool model, man. Let me
I
play
know.
him. The
I
Miasma
know.
Malignifier, but again, terrain. It's very clear they don't really care too much about terrain, which is sad because it's another cool model. Um, we'll just quickly top that off. The Predator Annihilator is the only other unit that didn't go down. Honestly,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's fine at
They just
130.
aligned the Annihilate. Yeah, they aligned the Annihilate. Not the Annihilator, the
The
Destructor,
Disruptor.
didn't they? With it? So they're both now, yeah, same
Yeah,
price.
so I'm happy with that. You basically just
Yeah,
shoot just same points. You're just choosing what special rule and what main weapon you want. Happy with that.
yeah,
No problem with that. So yeah, a lot of the Virions went down. We'll get more into talking Virions when we come to the Plague Marines, but as we go, in fact, let's start there because it's probably the unit people want to see the most. Plague Marines, they went down 4 points a model. That was far more than I was expecting. What about you?
way more.
I I,
Yeah,
I honestly think like Plague Marines are still a strange unit. They're still squishy relatively, but I think we're at the points now where I'd actually be okay to run these things.
I built a I built a list in the app that was like actually three rhinos, 10, 10, 7. Because you now get them up, you now use the rhinos to get upfield and get out. And you're suddenly, we talked earlier about needing to put stuff in contagion range. Well, this is going to do it quickly. And obviously, the rhino gives it off as well. So it's then you take out plague marines that are then getting -1 weapon or ballistic skill into them, which is basically like we talked about, is giving them some extra resilience. And then they're going to be hitting things with kind of AP2. It's it's a really interesting. It's really interesting. I think there's definitely some play in the plague marine list now.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the 7-man squad size. I think 7-man's a good point where a good, nice little mid balance. Also, for those who don't know, if you take a 7-man Plague Marine unit, you're actually getting a whole. I think it's 4 points for free.
Yeah,
You get 4 points off your normal unit cost. But I think it's a good point. I was looking at something like um, obviously plasma gun, heavy plague weapon on the sergeant, two more
yeah.
heavy plague weapons, plasma gun and blight launcher, two normal biotic weapons, and just having sort of like a. It's not really. I mean, it's more melee output on it, admittedly, but you still have those plasma guns to fire out of. Because for 110 points, that's not bad. That's actually
No,
pretty good.
and also, I've been dying to put the a playcaster back into the mix in this because his abilities going into infantry is great.
Yeah, he's got like I said, he's got a really nice spell. He's also got
Yeah,
the -1 to wound, which if you then take like we said before with the -1 weapon skill, ballistic skill, and then you get something like a -1 to hit, you can technically get something like even to plague marines can even be -1 to wound, -1 weapon skill,
yeah.
-1 to hit.
On
Again,
damage.
the synergies like coming back into the list. So it's really cool. I think the Biologist Putrefier also is now at a points cost where I actually think him, because I figured out I think it's 7 Plague Marines, a Biologist Putrefier, and a Rhino is now
Mm,
235 points, which I am not against. When that was
no,
like
that's
near
fine.
400 before for 10 guys, a Rhino and Biologist Putrefier. Now we're 235. That's crazy.
Yeah, every this I mean the one that really slapped me in the face was Tallyman's 45 points as well.
Oh
So
yeah,
when you've got that, I built a list and I had one of the lists I built earlier. I had 45 points left in it, and I was like, oh, what's going to go in there? And I was like, hang on a minute, check this sheet again, and was like, good, there's a CP regen.
I didn't even know he was 45. That's really cheap actually. It's weird.
Yeah,
You'll look at this sheet and you'll miss stuff still.
you
Um,
missed it. Yeah,
So actually, that's really good. That's really good for his value. But yeah, so people who are like down on Plague Marines and stuff, I still think you can't play brainlessly with them. They're still fairly squishy, but I think they're at the point now where you can start playing the sort of the trade up game again, especially with
yeah,
rhinos and stuff. Because again, the contagions are now much more improved with the extra effect. Your rhino after it's dropped off the payload, again, has so much value. You can go around, spread that -1 save, spread the -1 ballistic skill, weapon skill, the -1 toughness. It can do actions, there's a lot of play to be had there now. Or you can just sit you guys in it. You got the firing port. You can if you've got that playcaster, as you said, you can fire that out the roof. That's a really
yeah.
nasty flamer. People like Foul Blightspawn, again, you can flamer that out. I think there's just like I honestly think Plague Marine Rhinos are actually going to be like pretty decent. I think if you said before, like looking like free rhinos full of it is really nasty, and I want to see the mad lad who's going to take the full 6 and see how that does.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's going to be Don probably. Don, you in the chat
He's
still?
yeah.
Can you do that for me, bud? Can you play test that for me?
Well, I'd even say is even with one of them, right? To what you were just saying there, Aiden, is you put 7 Marines there, maybe a Bulge Putrefier and a Fight First in there, and you ram that into the opponent's lines. It's going to put them in contagion. So if they shoot it, their weapon skills down. If they melee it, their melee skills down, their ballistic skills down. If they shoot at it, you can give it smoke, so it can survive there as well. Like this thing might just sit in the middle of a line and suddenly be giving off -1 ballistic skill, weapon skill to everything that then wants to shoot at the rest of your army too.
And I think that's and like again, imagine like we said before with like the -1 to weapon skill in combat. Imagine like so they go through all the effort to pop it, and they're finally ready to charge it. Not only have they got to worry about them being -1 weapon skill, potentially -1 to hit if you have some nurglings or something nearby to heroic intervention or whatever. But then you also like fight first on the unit, so it's like, do I really want to charge into that, get swung at by it, and then when I do finally get to swing, a -1 weapon skill? Like that's
Mm.
not nice to deal with. That's pretty grim. Yeah, Don, I know you were doing quite well with 60 Plague Marines before. So I bet you're quite happy to see these points changes. I think it's going to be very good. And I do think the Biosprit Fire is still excellent. 5 up
Yeah,
lethal hits. Plus you
I've
can
got
do
really
this.
cool.
Yeah, you can sustained hits onto it as well on a 5 up. Is I think they're at the points cost now where they're sort of starting to feel a bit more like ninth, where they can really punch upwards. So that's really cool. So we'll move on from
Yeah,
Plague Marines. I know we talked about Plague Marines a lot, but it's a fan favorite unit. I'm pretty sure half the reason most of us got into Death Guard is probably because we saw a Plague Marine. Let's talk about our chaff, mate. So Poxwalkers and
okay.
Cultists are now both 50. What do you think about that?
Uh, I don't know about you, but whilst building lists earlier in 10th, I certainly came across a bit where I had 50 points, not 55 points.
Yep,
And that now is going to make it easier to get them in. Cultists, you've talked about them loads on previous editions, so
yep,
I won't go over it too much, but those things they're brilliant.
they
And
are.
to now have them even cheaper. Poxwalkers are a pain in the ass when you bring them on from reserve and then charge them into, a war dog or an armor on a point, or bring them in from turn 3 on the back. They just clog things up. And the other thing is now, this is the other brilliant thing about this brilliant new rule. Plague Marines with a 5, sorry, not Plague Marines, Poxwalkers with a 5 up, feel no pain, are now also going to be, in melee, if they charge into something, they're -1 to be shot, and they're going to be, because of the ballistic skill modifier and the weapon skill, so they're even harder to get rid of now.
And then you bring in Typhus because he can join to Poxwalkers, and now you've got
Yeah.
-2 to be hit Poxwalkers in combat with a 5 up Feel No Pain, which regenerate if you don't kill enough. It
Yep.
is Yeah, it's wild.
How
And again, the
get rid
cultists
of
as
20 of
well.
those in your
Go on.
backline?
You go ahead, mate. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, getting rid of 20 of those in your back line or coming on from reserve onto a point is a resource sink.
Yeah, oh, it's gonna be grim to deal with. You're right, 40k dirtbags. How you doing, man? And I think again, cultists. We talk about like I want to
Look
go into
out.
it, but I rag on about how good cultists are, but now again, just the extra contagion effect gives the scout move. Scout move. Imagine turn 1 now. So I've done this before, where you go the scout move, advance, boil blight onto a unit,
Or
but now
like,
you're also boil blighting and -1 saving. So you got your mortars firing in, hitting on 2s, ignoring all the penalties because of mortarion. At AP
up over here.
1, technically 2, ignoring cover. Okay,
Yeah.
taking for
It,
me.
yeah, it's so nasty. And like you're gonna have to get, this is the thing we're all gonna have to get used to doing now, is to start tracking the stacking.
Track the stack. So yeah, it's they regenerate if you kill, not your opponent. No, sorry. What we meant was it's going to be hard for them to deal with your poxwalkers as you are regenerating. So
Yeah.
obviously, if they come in, don't wipe you because of the -1 weapon skill, and then -1 to hit because of Typhus, so you basically -2 to hit, and then you start clapping back and killing stuff, then you're going to start regenerating, and then that's going to make the next exchange and the next fight phase even worse because they've got less to fight with. You've potentially got more poxwalkers back, and it just sort of snowballs. I had it against 10 Harlequins, and Yvrain went into 20 poxwalk and Typhus, and that's before this change, and they killed like 12. It's kind of sad that Harlequins hit that week now, but then
Mm.
Typhus sweeped, killed like 6 or something, and then the Poxwalkers picked up like another 3, and I got 9 back, and it was just like you basically just ran your Harlequins in, died, and now I'm back at full strength. Thanks. So yeah, that
In chat, Will's talking about the malignifier, and I've actually been thinking about this today as well. Now that we've got this gap, or not a gap, but now we've got this kind of points boost. Um, it is potentially really interesting to have this thing sat in to allow us to have that, because we're still slow, right? One thing we still can't get around
yep.
is that does actually give us that extra bit of terrain, particularly in competition, to get to. Getting the -1 to hit. It's yeah, it is potentially an interesting play.
That looks quite interesting. Should you play something like player placed as well? That could really be fun, really fun to mess around with and see what you could get going with it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he was. I don't think Aidan was saying the sweep brings them back. Just saying that Typhus goes into whittles the unit down. But if you do take them out with his super smite, you will get back.
I know the sweep does bring them back, by the way. When he attack, remember when you
No,
join a
not that
unit,
actually.
you inherit the abilities of the unit as well, because the Poxwalker's ability say models in this unit, and
Mm.
he is part of the unit. So your melee attacks as Typhus do resurrect models as well.
Yeah, yeah, okay, makes total sense.
Um, so what else we got on here? So Plagueburst Crawls went down. Again, I already thought these were incredible. I honestly didn't think these would change points, and I would have been happy with
No, I
that.
didn't.
But 10 points down is 10 points down. I'm not going to complain. Again, I don't need to really talk. We don't need to talk much about these because we're already kind of using them.
Yeah,
Continue to use them. I still think they're good. They may people sometimes and ahd on the cost of them, but now 10 points down, it's even better value. I still love taking free. I always will take free, especially with other indirects becoming weaker like Desolators and stuff. They're still a really solid unit, and I'm happy to still put them in every list.
yeah. We didn't get any negatives from them. They are still as good indirect. They're still buffed by Morty. They're still buffed by the Lord of Virulence, and they're 10 points cheaper.
Yeah,
What's
it's.
not to love? We snuck through that.
I was honestly surprised. I thought they would take actually a hit, or at least not drop. Because again,
Yeah.
indirect is already
If
really
they paid
strong.
175, I honestly would have been totally happy.
Yeah. So what else are we gonna go? So we'll go a bit more in order now. So Blight Lord Terminators, they take a 10 point drop, is it?
Yeah,
Now I haven't been playing much with Blight Lords, and mainly it's because I like Blight Lords in big bricks, I like Blight Lord bricks, and Dev
yeah,
Wounds kind of like stopped that. I'm sure we've all been shot by a Wraith Cannon, you got two sixes, and you've lost like 60 Terminators. Now with the change to Dev Wounds, I feel like that is a safer unit to bring in the current game. Plus, another problem that Blight Lords had is output was quite weak on them.
mm,
Now you potentially realistically act as if you're AP free on your melee if you choose that contagion to -1 save, but also if you just want to be a big chunky block that's just not going to get moved easily, the -1 weapon skill, -1 ballistic skill, like that's hard to remove. That is 30 wounds of chunk,
yeah, yeah.
especially if you join something like
With the ability
Typhus.
to do that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's get that off the middle now.
and this is the thing I love as well is like when you make a list, don't think in your head too much. Typhus is always going with the Poxwalkers because I don't do that in my list. Typhus is an
Okay.
option. If it was in a game where I think it's going to come down to a massive midboard slog, and I have a 10-man brick of Blight Lords that I normally put Lord of Virulence with, and I have 20 Poxwalkers I'll normally put Typhus with, instead the Lord of Virulence can go on his own, um, and Typhus can go with the Blight Lords because I know this is going to come down to that midboard slog. Invest in your slog. don't just don't just be like, oh, I need real wounds for the one turn I'm going to shoot before I get stuck in melee for the next 10 turns.
Yeah, I mean, I've also found that I've been running the Lord of Virulence solo for most of the games of 10th. I find that if he sits at the back and you basically when you deploy him, obviously where you can kind of just toe out of cover, get a good line of sight everywhere. What I found is my opponents are too busy looking at Morty, Plague Burst Crawlers, Terminators, and as a single model, he also just visually attracts less attention when he's just poking out from behind cover. And I've found people tend to forget about him, and he's still there at the end of the game.
I've had that happen too, weirdly. I don't know what it is. I think it's like you said, because they've got more Arian in the face, they've got like Death Shroud everywhere and
Yeah,
Plague Burst Crawls. They just don't look at him that much, and he just kind of like gets to get away with, being a, he's a lone operative wink.
yeah, he is. He just pretends he's got lone operative. Well,
Yeah.
we've told him he does, and he hasn't really.
He believes in it. Death Guard Chaos Lords. Now, I had an interview yesterday with Innes Wilson who talked about the uses of the Desiccation Conduit, which is the aura that they have to pulse mortal wounds, and the effect that basically he was running the characters solo. So he just took a Terminator Chaos Lord with the Living Plague, for the extra aura
Yeah,
enhancement. With that, and he basically just put him in a really awkward position where he's kind of covering two objectives, and he'd just not do anything, just be a pain in the ass. So he'd sit there giving out the debuffs and chipping away mortal wounds on like multiple units at a turn. And now he's going to get an extra contagion effect on that. And that's really interesting. And his points went down. So I'm
yeah,
actually really interested. I'm not going to say it's good because I've not tried it myself. But I mean, it worked for him. And he's, captain of Team Scotland. I'm going to, if he
yeah,
says,
yeah.
hey, give this a whirl, I'm going to be inclined to give it a whirl. So I'm excited to sort of see how that goes. And I especially the lower points cost now have been like 85 or 65 if you're happy to go with a power armor variant. I don't think, worst case scenario, it doesn't play out. You're losing like an 85 to like 100 point investment, worst case. So it's not like you're throwing away like a 400 point unit or something. So I'm interested to try him out. Again, I don't think he's going to set the world on fire or anything, but I think giving out an aura at 12 inches, just snuck in a corner somewhere, T6, 6 wounds, 4 up invulnerable, being an absolute pain to just remove, because that's not a unit you can just remove with like, intercessors or like 5 assault marines. You have to actually dedicate something to that. And even if they dedicate like a Hellblaster squad to go and kill him, like 5 Hellblasters shoot him off, but then you pick up the 5 Hellblasters, chances are you upgraded.
100%. And I think that you can't knock that. If you can give him if he by what turn three, he's got a 12-inch aura. That's 24 inches of board coverage just sat in behind a building wall.
Yeah.
And actually, having one or two of those kind of models on the table actually really allows you to get some massive coverage.
Yeah,
So
and I think that's going to help against the shooting matchups because again, you get into a really cheeky position. You're spraying out a 24-inch aura effectively and tagging so many shooting units. And the only thing that's going to be really annoying about this army playing it now is measuring everything because you're going to be like your opponent. You're going to be like, you're in the aura, you're in the aura, you're in the
yeah,
aura.
yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
we're going to have to keep checking that, but hopefully we'll find. To be honest, when you've played with Death Guard for so long, you get kind of used to what just
You
9-inch
kind of get
auras
used to
look like.
buying it, yes.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, that looks about right, and you check, you're like, yeah, I was right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm interested in trying them. Chaos Spawn, I don't think they have come down. I think they went down 5 points, and
Yeah.
I don't think they're bad. But the problem is everything else went down so much more. Um,
Yeah, I don't think that I still don't see a place currently in my list for them.
no, if they were one model for 35,
Yeah,
probably for secondaries.
yeah,
But
definitely.
stuck at the 2 for 70, yeah, I think I've dropped that from a list. That was the first thing I did. I was like, you do not need it anymore because I for 30 more points I can get a bloat drone, or a cheat like a Tallyman for 45 points. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's out of there. Talks about cultists. Demon Prince is interesting. I've not played with a Demon Prince. You played recently with Demon Prince, correct?
No, so I built a list for it, and I actually I swapped it around last minute to stick in another predator
Oh,
because I
okay.
was playing into guard. So I put a second predator on the table. But and to be honest, it was points.
Yeah.
I looked at it again and just went, yeah, I love the fact he's got big movement. I'm going to get devastating wounds on the charge. Like I get, it's that force battle shock and give him the enhancement to give him that kind of extra strength, extra attack. But um, when I looked at that and then went, yeah, but for what 80 points less, pretty much, or 70 points less, I can stick another twin link las cannon and two las cannon sponsors on the table.
And have change.
I'm going to take that, yeah, and that have a lot of change.
Yeah. So
Um,
I'm interested to see because again, if we're talking about maybe like if we can get into these sloggy matchups with the -2 to hit, -1 to wound, -1 damage. Now imagine sticking a 6 up fuel pain on there just with the sprinkles. Now at that point
yeah,
you might be going a bit overkill and not need it. Um, but at 160 points, I'd be willing to test it. Whereas before I think was he 180? He might have
yeah,
been even
and,
more.
it, and the one without wings, is that the extra toughness?
It's the extra toughness
Yeah,
and the 6 up fuel pain aura.
yeah,
So
yeah.
hi
And
Joe.
that, and then he's -1. As we talked about, if you're taking that sickness, he could be, in people's faces fast, and they're also -1 to hit him, or natively because of we're neutering their weapon and ballistic skill. Um, yeah, he could be very hard to get rid of.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely room to experiment there. I don't think it's like currently I wasn't even looking at Demon Prince, it just didn't even occur in my head. Now I might actually give it a try in one game. Defilers went down from 210 to 190, so I know Don Husin, Bob, the French WTC player, who's also a very good Def Guard player, real of the Defilers. I don't own a Defiler, unfortunately. Um, but going down in points, and these fellas were already telling me Defilers were actually pretty good. Can only be positive. So I would probably have to defer to them. I don't want to make any comments because I've not played with them. I don't want to be sit here again. I'm not a kind of podcast that'll bullshit you and talk about stuff I don't know. Do you have any Defilers?
So I took a Soul Grinder. I've got a
Oh,
model that can play as both, but I took the Soul Grinder, which has also gone down in points in the allied units section of the app, um, because it's a 3 up, 4 up. It's T10, I think. It's got it hits like an absolute truck. It hits like Definer, and it's also got a 36-inch indirect blast weapon. So it also benefits from Morty's setup when you kind of set them all up. And also, when I played into Grey Knights, I scuttled it up to a Dread Knight, and the guy was like going to be like, "Oh, so you're going to shoot it?" And I was like, "No, I'm going to hit you with Strength 16 and flat 3 damage and just crush it." And the thing survived. The thing just sat there, and they couldn't move it. Um, Obviously the defiler gets the benefits, the grinder won't, but the grinder's got more survivability. So I haven't tried the defiler yet, but I certainly enjoyed using that.
Yeah,
It's a real bully unit. It can also deep strike.
that's nice. That's nice to have. That's a good
It's
option.
big based.
No one expects a soul grinder in your back lines. 40k dirtbags. He has 3 defilers in his list. Right. I don't know if you've played with them already. If you have, let me know how it goes. If you haven't played with them on you or you
Really
haven't,
fun.
I want to know basically. So at some point, share the tale of the defiler. Because I mean, I have to get some, and I've had one in the past, and from what I remember, it's a pain in the ass to build. So if I'm gonna get one and build it, please make it worth my while. But yeah, I'd be interested to see. I know Bob's very happy about that. He loves it. He loves his defilers. Hellbrew. Now this is an interesting one. Um, Hellbrew is still fairly expensive for what it is. It's 140 points. It's only 8 wounds on a 2-up save, no invuln. But
Yeah.
the Hellbrute ability, for those who don't know, is anything after it's fired, finish shooting, any target that is hit. Well, you select one. You select one target that was hit by one of its ranged attacks. That target always counts as being in contagion range of the Hellbrute. Now, this would now apply the -1 toughness and the extra effect you've picked, and it also allows us to pay 1 CP to Boil Blight off it.
Yeah.
This for me is almost like a Death Guard oath of moment, in my opinion. You pick a unit, you reduce his save potentially by 1, you reduce his toughness by 1, you pay 1 CP to give now everything that shoots at it the heavy keyword and ignores cover. So all your playable scrolls are going to hit on 2s, ignoring cover, and it's -1 save. To me, this, like I said, is like almost like a Death Guard oath of moment. I don't know how you feel about it, but I am very excited to put this on the field and give it a go.
Yeah, I mean, I think for 140 points, I'm going to run one of them. But las cannon missile launcher combo, so 248 inches, reach across the board. When they hit, when you've only got a hit as well for the ability that Aiden just mentioned to actually go live. But if you then roll the damage through, you also then a crack missile and a las cannon going into something big is going to hurt it a lot as well. Yeah, and then the other thing I like about it is that the model isn't too big.
Yeah,
So it is actually easy to stick into a ruin, or to just obscure or take out of line of sight and then just pop out. And the 48-inch ranger lets it sit right at the back. And once again, if you it's got an okay move. I think it's 6, so you can actually shuffle it over to be within 6 of Morty, which also gives you the benefits of then them not being able to mitigate your kind of characteristics. And I found that really worked with the ball blight element that Aiden talked about there too, with then having 2 predators on the table. Now I'm not saying run 2 predators, but that then was like bang. Now they're hitting on 2s, and they're near Morty, and the twin links are re-rolling the wound roll, and you get to re-roll one against one if you roll 1 for damage against vehicles, and they're just picking up guard tanks across the table.
that's really nice. That's a cool idea. The other good thing about the missile launcher is if you're not too fussed about the missile damage, but you 100% want to guarantee you get them with a
Yeah,
contagion tag, you can fire the frag shot because then you get
yeah,
D6 shots and D6 chances to score a hit. Because obviously the las cannon can be a bit whiffy of the one shot, so it's
yeah,
nice to have that option. I personally was thinking plasma cannon fist because I want a strategic reserve mine. I'm probably going to bring it on from a side, get a shot onto something I
yeah.
want because I really want to use its tank shock because it has the other ability where after it finishes a
Right.
charge, you deal D3 mortal wounds. So you can tank shock, potentially do 6 there, potentially do another 3 with that ability, and potentially just dome something for 9 9 mortal wounds on the charge, which sounds really funny. Um, and it's quite a small base, as you said, it's quite a small model actually. So
Yeah, it is.
people, you'd be surprised how many people would leave a gap for that thing to show up in their backlines. And if that thing shows up, that's quite scary. Now, Brian in the chat has said he good for hammer. I like the hammer a lot. I'm cursed by weapon skill 4. I can't roll 4 up to save my life. I do like the hammer though. And the other thing is, because the plasma cannon has D3 shots, you use a chance you could roll the one and then miss. So having the fist, you can take the onboard combi bolter, which gives you another 2 to 4 shots to potentially hit. And as 40k Dirtbags also said, instead, if you can opt out for that and put the heavy flamer on it, because then you have D6 auto hits. So as soon as you're within 12, you're guaranteed at least scoring that hit. So there's an options with the fist. The hammer is technically probably more damaging and more powerful and better for tank shot because you get 2 extra dice. But for me, because I can't hit on force to save my life, I'm probably going to stick with the fist.
Yeah, I mean that was just for anyone who hasn't seen a Hellbrute or whatever. You could just see the comparison size to a Terminator. Like it's not that big.
Yeah, he's quite a dinky little man. I've got one literally on my deck. I'm painting him right now. He's a work in progress. So much trim.
No.
Look how dinky he is. Like for example, I don't actually have any other Death Guard on here. I have a Votan bike. Look at the size. That's a bit. There you go. It's more like it. See, he's actually very small. Um, so yeah, but I'm very excited to try him. I don't think I'd go more than one because he's still quite expensive for his durability. But I think one of, and especially I talked about all my
Yeah,
fundamentals videos that I'm working on currently about I like playing toolboxy lists. I think he's a tool and he's good for the box.
yeah, yeah. I like it. I mean, yeah. I mean, definitely. I would. I think the good thing about the Hellbrute with all the weapon configs is you can make it play roles. Like we just explored, we just talked about two very different usages for them there. You know, if you're someone who wants to run some las cannons in your list via a predator kind of annihilator or the Landguard or the Land Raider, then the long range Hellbrute's really useful to get those stats and get those perks kind of all procking. Or like Aidan said, you bring it in as a really nasty surprise, and the base size allows you to get it in the back line or in that, and they're good units, flexible.
That's what I say about it. We're on 117 viewers. That is the highest I think I've ever had. So I'm very happy. This is going well. Wait, you're not all bandwagoners, are you? um, so moving on. So the next one is the Death Guard Icon Bearer. So let's talk about a unit that didn't really have much of a purpose, which now
Nope.
potentially kind of maybe, but maybe not. I don't know. He's still kind of weird. He's cheap. He's 45 points for a character.
Mm,
Same as a Tallyman though. So the Tallyman's probably just better value as you look at it. But he does have once per game. He just flat out makes his aura 12 inches, is it? Um,
yeah, yeah. So useful in a attached to a plague marine unit in a rhino like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so I think, and like getting those big auras out is really nice, especially with the extra contagions on it. He also gives his squad an extra 1 OC. Again, as we said before, we don't think Plague Marines are anywhere near as bad as they used to be. Quite playable now. I still don't think I'm going to be taking an Icon Bearer just yet. I
No.
still think I prefer the Taliman, the Biology Putrefier, the Foul Blight Spawn. But I'm definitely going to take him over a Plague Surgeon. I,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there were a few models on here when even with the new rules and everything that still haven't leapt out and gone, take me. Like that's and he's one of those.
Yeah, 40k Dirtbags, him advancing out of rank. Can he advance and plant that banner? Because that would actually be interesting. Because you could take him as a solo model, run him out, just slam it
Mhm.
down, and then that's a huge aura of like -1 save to their entire army. Um,
Yeah,
that's actually interesting, Dirtbags. I
yeah,
love this. I love the community coming together because no matter how much me and you talk, for example, or me and Will talk, whatever, we'll miss stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's just so cool to have people come in chat and just be like, "Did you know?" um, damn. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, let's
yeah.
go in the
You can
notebook.
stick 7 marines in there. You attach the plaguecaster and biologist or the foul blight spawn to it, and then stick him in as a separate unit.
Yeah.
And like I said, then have them jump out into cover or whatever or where you need to be, and then have him just like charge into the enemy line and stick it down.
Bonus points if you can also do an action and raise the banner because you can jump out, score like 4 victory points, give them all -1 save, and just stand there like, "Yay!" No, that should be pretty fun. Yeah, I'm interested in that one actually. That's quite a lot more interesting. Land Raider went down in points. From what I've heard, I don't have a Land Raider. I do want to try one out. It's just a really
Um,
cool model as well. I've heard Land Raiders are actually pretty good this edition. They're not awful. They're not amazing. They're just nice, good, solid unit. So for that to get cheaper, I'm pretty sure that's
yeah.
just a buff. That's just a good bonus. I know you play a Land Raider. Do you
Oh,
want to take this
I
one?
played. Yeah, I played one twice recently. I played into a Chaos Knights list just recently, and I looked at the setup. He had one big knight, and the rest were all war dogs. Loads of shooting, so I was like, right, I'm going to set the Land Raider up on the line and roll for first. I pushed the Land Raider out, spun it so that I stuck the rear corner of the model within 6 of Morty because the model's so big. And then got the Death Shroud out, which we'll get to them, but they're my favorite unit in the whole game. Got them out 3. I think I needed a 9 to get to him. Rolled an 11 on the charge.
Nice.
Shot after shooting everything else into them, ignoring it. He couldn't put any buffs on it. Couldn't mitigate any of my shots. Couldn't mitigate my damage. Couldn't mitigate my AP. Took the knight down to 4 wounds. 6 Death Shroud went into it, hacked it down, and then after piling in, consolidated into a autocannon war dog on the back on his home objective, and camped there the rest of the game. So
Nice.
I mean, but that is a very extreme example of it. But the really good thing with something like that is you bring it on from strategic reserve. And if you've got an opponent sat on an objective and you come on and you're within 9 of them, obviously the Death Shroud can get out,
Yes.
and they can get out within the 9 to make your charges 6
Yep.
or whatever unit you've got inside. That's a really nice thing, as well as having the 4 las cannons to shoot.
That's good. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, because it's got the assault ramp rule, so even coming in from strategic reserves counts as moving. Still allows you to disembark because of the assault
Yeah,
ramp. So that's a nice
yeah.
little
The
combo.
inside don't count as having made a normal move at that point.
Yeah. Some questions in the chat. Would having 2 icons stack on one turn? You wouldn't be able to stack the abilities as if like you'd be -2 to hit and -2 to weapon skill or anything like that. But it would. You could stack them
People thought I like it.
as in like I know that'd be broken, that'd be bullshit. But it'd be having to be like when you say like having the aura like stack as in like having 2 bubbles of 24 inches. You can cover basically the entire game
Yeah.
at that point. That would work. But no, the effects themselves don't stack like that. How many cultists are good to take? I personally am a fan of 2 times 10. I think 2 units is a good amount of
Brilliant.
utility and screening. I don't think you can go wrong with just 1 unit or 3 units, but I think 2 is the nice soft spot. I would always include at least 1 unit. Just the scout move is just so nice.
And I think also talking about being able to cover the board with or with kind of growing aura places with the scout move, the advance, you can tuck them into cover. They're really small units. They can sit there, and if the opponent then wants to, waste firepower taking them out, especially with going into our cheaper points list where we've got even more models on the table, that's going to be an even harder decision for them going forward.
Yeah. So what was up next on there? So that's Land Raider were good. Predators. Again, we talked about it a bit before. I thought Predators were pretty good anyway. I know people compare them to Lancers. I don't know if Lancers have gone up. I haven't really looked at other factions' points. Um, but if Lancers have gone up, then I'm happy. But I'm not going to compare it because it's a bit of a silly comparison. You shouldn't really compare to other units because you just make yourself sad sometimes. But 130 points for both of them now. I'm a happy bunny. It's a solid little tank. It's not expensive, so if you lose it, it's not a horrific loss. It's got good output, and I think both of them have pretty good rules. I honestly underestimated the reroll 1s of damage on the Annihilator. I thought it was really niche and would barely ever come up. My god, can I roll 1s for damage? And having that
I
reroll
think,
there just saves you so many times.
especially when that turns into a 6, it's just your
It, ha-
opponent's face.
it
Great.
happens so many times. You roll a 1, you're like, oh, and you reroll it, it's like a 6, and you're like, oh, there you
Yeah.
go. So I think both of these remain as solid tanks. Not too expensive, but the output they can put out is actually really nice, especially with the new contagions to help them as well. And also, again, they're quite protected against stuff that tries to come in from like 3-inch deep strikes as well. Because now they're -1, but like you're not gonna have plasma interceptors coming and threaten you as scarily. Because
No,
-1 to ballistic skill. Just again, and then you can pop smoke as well, stacks it.
exactly.
It's really nice. Again, a lot of these things become a lot more survivable because if you get like an icon bearer up there turn 1, give a lot of their key units -1 ballistic skill, and then you can smoke or give a cloud of flies. That's like -2 to hit. Like tower hitting you on 6s. That's not people don't like -2 to hit. So it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, and a lot of the things we're talking about, like to make us really obnoxious, is I think the Tallyman's going to become a must take to have that extra CP. So I think we're going to be wanting to pop more things to get more plays away.
Yeah, and when I was trying to Innis sold me a lot more on a fixed plan of secondaries, so I'm going to try fixed a bit more. And obviously with fixed, you can't chuck away a stratagem for a CP. So again, I think that gives more value to that Tallyman, which is really nice to have. Rhino again. Rhinos are such a good unit, underrated. I know they're boring. I know they're not the most exciting unit, but rhinos are great. I have used rhinos all of 9th edition. If I took Plague Marines, I'm using rhinos in 10th edition. Dropping it 5 points, never gonna complain. Solid. Happy with that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's too much to really talk about Rhino. It's a Rhino. But there's cool plays like shooting your characters out with icons. Plague Marines are now actually looking pretty interesting. 7-man squads, 10-man squads, 5-man squads. It doesn't really matter. They look quite interesting at the new cost. So you don't feel too bad putting that Rhino in there now because you've gone from having like a 400 point Rhino to like a 250 point Rhino, which feels a lot more nice, a lot more. If you lose it, you don't go, oh, that was a quarter of my
No, no.
army. Um, I use Predators the sort of hit and miss. They can be a bit hit and miss, but the thing is, when I don't mind it too much because it's 130 points of hit and miss. It's not like like whiffing with like 400 point unit or something. So I can deal with it hitting or missing. Um, Again, it's only 3 shots on the full last kind of one, but twin linked helps. You try and get boil back. You try and help it as much as possible. But there's been turns like I had that game against Stories where it literally picked up a Caladius grav tank turn one, shot the next one turn two, and picked that one up
Yeah.
as well. It can happen, and having the ability for it to happen is really good, as long as you capitalize on stuff like
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I've had one pick up. I had one poke out and pick up a gladiator, like crossboard. But then, as people say, I've had it where I rolled ones for every single shot.
It happens. It can happen. Death Guard Sorcerer and Terminator Armor did not need to go down in points, but my lord, he did.
Gone
Um,
mad.
Again, I love running this guy with a solo or with a unit. He's got a crazy, stupid damage-free spell, which now is potentially also going to, be benefiting from the extra minus save reduction. So now it's technically going to be like AP free on the spell, which is brutal. um, I,
Yeah,
Part of that, he got cheaper. I already thought he was a good include. I think he's a great cheap character. Can deep strike on his own. Can join squads. Lots of uses for him. Never going to complain. Again, solid. Probably staying in my list. What about you? What do you think of him?
yeah. I think I think the other one that's horrible about him leading a unit is obviously you get into the fight phase, which he was -1 damage to your unit. Um, But now that opponent, because Aidan said it earlier, when they're in melee with you, they are 100% in engagement range with you. So they're also -1 melee weapon skill. So you've already got all this starting to stack up and go on. He's wonderful. I've had him. Yeah, just he helped me really win a game against Necrons, picking up the last members of the characters in the 20-man blob just with his once a game attack.
Yeah, and don't forget, every time you get a use out of his spell, that's 2 command points saved. That's nuts. Because that's
Yeah.
that's the cost of the strat. Someone in chat, I don't know if you've already talked about Blightbringers, but any thought on -3 leadership bomb with Battleshock test against Necrons? Yes, we did mention it before. I think it's actually if Necrons become very strong and start to become a lot of the meta, I will bring the Bellboy because you cannot reanimate, you can't use strats while you're battle shocked, which means then you can go in with something heroically challenging and then precision out the Cryptek, which will then take away the feel no pain, and because it's the same turn, that they're battle shocked, he can't spend the CP to resurrect the Cryptek, and at that point, you've missed the chance to resurrect it. It's dead, it's gone, which means all the further combats they're not going to have to feel no pain. It's going to be a lot easier to deal with. I think it's a great tech choice. If you're in a heavy Necron meta, I'd really consider it. I don't know if I still don't know if I'd be taking the Contagion to go on top of it. I think the Bellboy's -2 is enough on its own.
Yeah, and I think also remember that you have got 3 PBCs to land battle shock onto them
Yeah,
as well as soon as those are hitting. So if you want to force that, you've got it in your back pocket with those.
yeah, it's nice. It's a nice tech piece though, and something to remember whenever you play against Necrons. So
Yeah,
your favorite ones, go on, you take it away.
my favorite boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, these guys are now super brutal again. They're you know, I think them going down in price is great. A 6-man unit back in the squad now looks sensible. You put that and you lead them. Those guys coming in from rapid ingress is a bomb now. If Typhus is sat in front of them, you're minus to hit. You're going to be minus to wound if their strength is over 6. There are 2 up, 4 up, 3 wounds each. There's 18 in there. 7d6 flamers for Overwatch. If you come in turn 3, you're going to have 9-inch aura on you. So coming in from deep strike, you've got a huge band around you. Coming out of a land raider, you're a 6-inch charge into opponents. These things are going to be a real menace and are really going to make your opponent go, I've got to make sure I screen stuff out. Personally, with them, I'm never worried about deep striking into my opponent's deployment zone. I like to make them think that's what I'm going to do with them, and I deliberately will measure out. I'll walk around the table, and I'll be like, right, 9 there, 9 there, and I'm like looking at the gaps and putting a dice down when I'm about to deploy them. And then I often always will plan to bring Death Shroud in if it's 2 units of 3, cut the mid board off,
Yep.
cut it in half, and basically create that threat zone in the middle or trap something in. Um, so I think they've got so much play, and now being cheaper, plus with our new abilities, I think they're an absolute bomb now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the because when we talk about AP, the most important AP is one. AP1 is the biggest impact usually on the game. So having potentially the contagion that reduces a save by one gives you that AP1 technically. Then you can Ferric Blight it to AP2, potentially up
Mhm.
to AP3 effectively against units, which for anti-infantry, like you said, 7d6 of these buggers. Um,
Bomb.
anti-infantry
Right.
4 plus potentially being up to AP3 is in wild.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Death Shroud again. I already was using them cheaper, much nicer. Yeah, solid unit. Again, potentially AP3 on the scythes in combat. AP1 on the sweep again is huge,
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah.
But again, you can go the defensive route where you're just reducing weapon skill on you, and then you got -1 to be wounded as well from your ability if their strength's higher. So solid chunky unit. Happy with that.
And also, if you get these guys in and they're on a point and it's infected, remember as well, we've got the ability to get them sustain two
Yes.
in melee.
And this is the thing, because of the weapon skill, ballistic skill changes, there's a lot more chance that you're going to stick around alive on objectives as well.
Yeah.
Um, Especially for these long, drawn out attrition battles, which Death Guard love. So yeah, Death Shroud, solid. Fetid Bloat Drone dropping a whole 35 points to go to
Yeah.
100 points. Yeah, this is a good unit now. It was already good, but it was a bit expensive. To drop to 100 was more than I thought, and I think at 100 points, this is a very playable unit.
Yeah, definitely. Really good costed, fast, ability to get, like say, contagion up the field, and then if anything comes near it, it can really hurt.
Yeah. Plus, you've got to remember it has the ability to fall back, shoot, and charge, which means
Yeah.
you can also, because it's a vehicle, it can shoot in combat, which means you can also action while you're in combat. You can also fall back and shoot, which then gives you eligible to fall back and action, and then you can also fall back and charge if you need to do that. So something like engage, you can fall back out of the middle, across, then charge into something else that is also potentially in, in like their zone, which will then score you engage. So it's a very versatile unit. It's cheap for its stat line. Don't worry, it's not unkillable. It will die, but
Yeah.
again, it's 100 points at T9, 10 wounds. It's not something again that your opponent's going to pick up without putting an actual dedicated unit into it. And if they put a dedicated 200 point unit to kill a 100 point bloat drone and you pick that up in return, you do that 3 times. Now you 600 points killed and lost 300. You got that advantage. Snowball it again. We always talk about snowballing. Um, so yeah, I'm sold on these things. I think I'm going to put one in my list because I have those 200 spare points, 260. So I'm thinking somewhat like I don't want to remake my list entirely because obviously I'm used to playing it. So for right now, I'm going to basically be getting my spawn out the 200 point spare, putting in one bloat drone, putting in a hell brute, and then finding an enhancement with the last little bits, or maybe another unit of Nurglings or something, because they went down in points as well, which is daft. They were so good already. So yeah, I'm happy with this unit. It's a good unit. Good unit. Also, Flesh Maw got nicer because it's now got the extra AP on it again. If you take that contagion. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even if you use the spitter drone and you fall back, shoot, and charge with that, if you need the last couple of wounds to pick something up, you can get the basic dice from Tank Shock as well to kind of just try and pick up those mortal wounds.
Oh shit, yeah, I'm forgetting tank man. See again, I've just not played with these units, and now it's all these things that you can like think about. Um, so moving on, Foul Blight Spawn. It's a Foul Blight Spawn. It's got a great flamer. It fights first. Again, we talked about Plague Marines being better now. Innes Wilson was running these things on their own and thinking they were already good enough to just do that. Now also maybe having a unit that is worth attaching to, or even just running them solo again. It's got a really nasty flamer. It's a little cheap character. He got even cheaper. Um, Everyone knows a foul blight spawn, don't we? At this point, I mean, there's not too much to talk about. He's not fundamentally changed how you use him, but point reduction is a point reduction. We'll take it.
Yeah, good unit.
Good unit, very solid unit. It was already solid, but even more solid now. Lord of Contagion, unfortunately though, eh,
Yeah, I'm saying I'm still not. That's another one of the models that I was like, I didn't look at that and go, well, you're now in the consideration.
yeah, he's a very cool model, and he looks sick. and he's got a very nice weapon and nice combat. It's just his ability is just worse than the Death Guard Chaos Lord in Terminator armor
Hmm.
by a long shot. He's 5 points cheaper, but it's just such a gimmicky ability. You have to take damage but not die, and then maybe you deal like a mortal wound back, and it's just like, eh. Now the best bit about him is if he joins a squad, they get to reroll all hit rolls in close combat.
Yeah,
The problem being Death Shroud are already weapon skill 2, so
yeah, you don't need it.
yeah, so really looking at putting him with Blight Lord Terminators, but Blight Lord Terminator is probably better with Lord of Virulence because he's going to get let them reroll all the wounds and all those guns. So he just kind of doesn't really have a place in my opinion. Um, I'd rather
Yeah,
take a Chaos Lord because the Chaos Lord also gives a unit reroll ones to hit, so it's not like they lose all the hits. Because again, you put a Death Guard Chaos Lord in Death Shroud, he does the same job as Lord of Contagion because they're hitting on twos anyway, so it's the
you need
same as
one.
reroll all hits. Yeah, and he also
Yeah.
has other abilities. Um,
Yeah, I think the other thing is I don't like about the Lord of Contagion's ability or his like his mortal wound thing is it's written from a really negative position. It's like so when you're dying, you do something back.
yeah,
Like it's not
and for
it
him
doesn't
to
give me
be dying, that means the squad that he's with has to all be dead.
something's going wrong.
Yeah, like it's not it, unfortunately. So leave your Lord of Contagions at home, sadly for now, unless you just relight medal. Although I will say 80 points is very cheap for a fairly
Yeah,
chunky character
thank
that can
you,
deep
character. Yeah,
strike.
it's hard as well.
Yeah, so you could maybe just sneak him in your opponent's backline and be an absolute pain in the ass to remove. So maybe there is some use. Malignant Playcast, Lord of Virulence, 100 points. Sorry. Again, I've talked to death Lord of Virulence. I think he's solid. He'll bring in Playburst Crawls, bring him. He's really good with the Flamers, and he just got cheaper, so no
He's cheaper.
complaints. He's good. You're going to take him probably. Playcaster, though, this is one probably you were saying before you're interested in.
Yeah, I ran it obviously. I think like we all did in ninth religiously. And I put him in my first game of tenth into the World Eaters, and I know it's a particularly good matchup on that. But him inside a Rhino with I think the Foul Blightspawn, those two like spraying it, out of the firing pool, out of the firing deck was amazing. His ability's great. I think he's got play. I mean, he is he's only 65 points. And I think if I do run Plague Marines, he'll be one of the characters attached.
Yeah, Don made a good point. The Lord of Contagion giving the full rerolls to hit does allow him to farm for lethal and sustained hits. So yeah, okay, valid point.
Yeah,
Still don't think I'm taking him, but at least at least you found something there that he can do better than the other things. So I'll give you that one. Um,
yeah. I think I get this. I think one of the things I would say just on lethal is I've said to Aiden about this earlier. Is I think the other thing as Death Guard players we've managed to do right is you've got Dev wound changes that are now not mortal wounds and they're not spilling. We've you've got feel no pains against mortals are in the game. They're not. Lethal hits has now become even, in my opinion, has now become even more vital in this game. And we've got it everywhere across everything. So no matter what you hit, or what strength something is, or what toughness something is, we've got a chance across most of the stuff in our army to wound it. And that I think is where we've got more of that across our average unit, I think, than pretty much anything else in the game. And then you stack that on top of what we've been given today. I think lethal's really a standout element now.
yeah, I agree. I agree. So coming back to the Malignant Playcaster, yeah, I also think he's a good unit now. He's cheap for what he does. He's got an excellent shooting attack. Gives him out 2 more debuffs, which again is really nasty because it's just getting your. It's kind of thematic. It makes your opponent as miserable as we do. You can make a -1 to wound, -2 to charge, -1 weapon skill and ballistic skill when you come into the charge. Then if you've got Nurglings or Typhus nearby, then it's another -1 to hit, and then you can potentially get -1 damage. Like that's just like the light in your opponent's eyes no longer exists. Like they're done. So I'm interested to try him out in Rhinos as well because again he can shoot at the top, which is really nice. Miasmic Magnifier. We touched on it before. Maybe there is some use for it there. Again, that will require some experimenting. I've never used it. I probably won't use it. I'm not a terrainy kind of person. But if someone out there pulls out the triple Miasmic Malignifier Maul to death list of doom, you're going to be on this podcast quicker than I can, eat a cake, and I can eat cake pretty fast, trust me. The Mortarion. So the unit that I was already stapling on and potentially crutching on because he's silly and he's overpowered. He's not overpowered. He's just daft. He's just like
Yeah.
he himself is like a wet noodle, but his auras are so good. and I was still putting him in every single at 375 points. I was like, that is a cheap Primarch with two excellent auras. He's going in every list. And then GW were like, what do we think of Mortarion, boys? He's a bit expensive, isn't he? How about we drop him like 50 points?
Honestly, he's his aura is so empowering, and as soon as you then start moving up the board with him and bringing stuff with it, and the ability to just touch stuff into 6 inches. It's, I played guard player recently, and he ended up with 9 CP because he couldn't smoke any of his vehicles. He couldn't do anything to protect damage. He just didn't have anything to spend the CP on
Yeah.
because everything I was using against him was all protected by Morty.
And one of my friends in chat who played this also said he laughed out loud when he saw Morty's cost reduction. That was my reaction as well. I'm pretty sure you double taked it like I did. You were like, wait, what? Really? It was yeah, at 325, he's so hard to not just chuck in a list.
He's the first edition in the list for me.
Like for me, like you're not playing 2,000 points. You're playing what 1,675 because Morty's
Yeah,
going in because the aura's daft. It's a unique aura that people just don't. When you think about fighting armies in the game, like Morty's aura is not on your mind. But then when you come into a game against it and you just realize all your defensives mean jack shit, you're just like, all my maths that I've worked up from millions of reps in my head against normal armies doesn't work, and then suddenly they're getting stuff picked up like paper, especially now even worse if you're getting like saves reduced. Um, yeah, Morty staying in. Yeah, GW looking at Death Guard wallets like, oh whoa, look, points drops, ka-ching. Yeah, um, you know, get yourself a Morty. If you're new to
yeah,
Death Guard, um, and you want to start taking competitive, I reckon he's again, even just for himself and his durability for his points, he's really tough. Like he's a lot of people say, "Oh, my Marty got picked up turn one." I'm like, why is he getting shot turn one, dude?
yeah. You can hide him. Yeah,
like, like Marty will die if you play him like a moron. Like, don't get me wrong, if you put him in the open and he gets shot to death by like triple Wraith Knight, yeah, he's gonna die. He's not invincible. But if you do the usual thing which I do when I'm playing Marty, and you mortar off elements, you've weakened your opponent a bit, and you bring
yeah,
him out like turn three when the anti-tank is either preoccupied with other stuff or it's been weakened to the point where it's really hard to kill him. Um, I think Morty becomes nightmarish to take down. Especially as the game, I've talked to my faction fundamentals, if you keep using the healing strat becomes more valuable as the game goes on because your
yeah.
opponent has less tools to deal with damage. So every point you heal is more valuable. He's solid. Hey, General Janice, welcome, mate. Are we back in contention now? Yes. Yes, we are. We are to the moon, bud. We're stonks.
You're going to be very busy making some videos.
Oh yes. Can you get the maths up on everything, please? So yeah, it's good, man. It's good. Death Guard, in my
Yeah,
opinion, isn't a problem now, Dons. But I think there's two things. I think the generic Death Guard player base, who still plays it the same old way, will have more success than normal. And but I still think they will perform sort of average. I think the people that play Death Guard a lot, main Death Guard, and have adapted to the way we have to play now, will come up to some armies that you will never lose against. I genuinely think you will come against some armies and just be like, you might as well shake my hand now, bud, because this is going one way for you and it's not the way you want it to go.
yeah,
And that's a worry as well, because I don't ever want a game to feel like that, even if I'm the one benefiting from it. I'm not one of these people that's arrogant or stupid enough to think that that's good for the game, but it could potentially be something that happens right now. But swings and roundabouts, everyone gets time in the sun. No doubt if it is problematic, we'll get nerfed. Um, it is what it is. It swings and roundabouts. This is why we always say play the army you love, because one month you'll be up here, the next month you'll be down here, but then the next month you might be up here again. Like you're gonna change all the time. Collect what you love, collect what you enjoy, keep playing it. When you win as an underdog, it's an amazing feeling, and when you're playing when you're a pretty strong army, it's also quite a cool feeling to actually be able to compete at those high levels. So as long as you enjoy the army, play the army, have fun. That's my main
yeah. And I
thing.
think if you can give someone a competitive game, or just give them a hard time on the table in a good competitive way, with when the army was how it's been, then things like this happen. Like it all changes, and suddenly you can play your army and give someone a game when it's in poor state, and then this stuff turns up, and we're gonna wreck people at the table.
Yeah, I think what Brian said there, he doesn't think Death Guard are going to be top table, but definitely at least mid and potential to swing up. I agree, because Death Guard is still hampered by one core fundamental thing, and that is speed. And a lot of
Agreed.
people, you'll hear all the time, movement wins 40k. And I think that's going to remain true. And I think Death Guard, because of that reason, will never really be like the Eldar we just had. But I do think a good player with Death Guard right now could be a big problem for a lot of people and a lot of armies, and an absolute nightmare to face on the table. So stocks are up, but I still think you have to use your brain.
Got to play, yeah.
I think unless you're against someone that's like really new to the game, in which case you'll probably just bowl over them. But you know, it happens. But yeah, it's good to see you back, General Dennis. Honestly, I was a little worried. You were quiet for a bit there, and I couldn't blame you. The game was in a bit of a shit state. So to see you pop up
Mm,
makes me happy. I'm good to know you're doing well, bud. Um, I like playing Morty with a triangular PBC tanks. Yep, again, PBC Morty. You know, it's jam and toast at this point. What's a good American analogy?
PB&J.
PB&J. There you go. There you go, you savages. Tea and crumpets for us over here, good sir. I think the Faded Black Dragon Rhinos will be interesting with new contagions. Yes, we touched on them. I also agree. I think that it's going to be a very interesting build. So it's not like a go fast, very aggressive in your opponent's face. So that's a cool build. That's a walk around. Who's going to sell Death Guard toilet dice? We don't talk about toilet dice down here. I was the victim of toilet. I lost my first place to the toilet dice.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, if you don't want to use your brain, play custards. Now, don't be offensive. Custards have to use at least one brain cell. Now,
Well, now they've
yeah,
got to use
now,
all of them.
now they have to actually think. No, I do feel a little sorry for them, but also, no, that's a lie. I fucking don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean the
sorry.
only the only bit is that their army rule has now become toilet dice.
Yeah, but hey, it swings and roundabouts. But
It is.
Blight Haulers, 100 points again. Yeah, Blight Haulers were pretty good before. Going to 100 points, being able to take them in the different unit sizes is really nice. You can go for that. I like 2-man units or 1-man units. I'm not really sold on the 3-man. It's a lot of space to take up, but I think there is play there to be had with it. They've got a decent anti-tank. The only thing I wish this unit changed was the rule on it got changed to monsters and vehicles. But as it is, I'm not going to complain. Reducing one save plus the AP4 from a multi-melter, and you can threat blight to an AP5 if you really want someone dead. Um, you can basically be dealing on hits and successful wounds, basically mortal wounds against stuff that doesn't have invulns because you basically can get to silly levels of AP where nothing's going to stop you. I think these little guys are great. Wait, are these things still -1 to hit in close combat?
Good question.
Someone check that.
I'm
Because
having a look one.
we know where we're going if that's the case.
Yeah. Next sheet. 50 blind hauler. Here we are.
I know in ninth they
Ability.
were.
No, ability is
Oh,
reroll. Yeah. No, not anymore.
no, okay, that's probably for the better of the game. I won't lie. Imagine
Yeah.
9 of them just being like, "Hey, I'm -2 to hit in combat. Lol, deal with it." Toughness 9, 10 wounds. That's casual.
Just call
Not
them obnoxious blightbringers.
Yeah, Noxious Blightbringer. We talked about him before a bit. I think he's got a niche case potentially if Necrons become meta. But again, as David said before, do you need it when you can force free battle shock test? Odds are they're probably going to fail one of them anyway. But if you really wanted to make sure, he's not the worst to include for 50 points. But he's definitely a tech choice. I think he's not a staple. He'd be like I'm in a meta of like a million Necrons and a million Endless Swarm Gaunts because if the battle shock they can't respawn. Um,
Yeah.
so that would be like a good tech time to bring him into your meta. But again, we got to see how the meta evolves for that. Um, but not bad, not a meme like he used to be. I think he has a place, but it has to be in the right meta. Um,
Yeah.
Plague Surgeon. There is one place actually for the Plague Surgeon. Just give me a second. There you go. That's where he belongs, in the bin.
It really does.
um, no, he's honestly. I don't get why he didn't get points costs cut. And the worst bit is because Plague Marines became cheaper, and that's the thing he resurrects. He now has to actually resurrect even more Plague Marines to make up his points. So he got actually worse. Um, so I'm just not taking this dude. I'm sorry. Um,
No.
I just I can't find a use for him compared to the other variants as well, which are far good. Even the Icon Bearer, we found a really cool tech piece now thanks to 40k Dirtbags. That's so cool. But this one, I don't. I mean, if someone in the chat comes up now with some weird tech piece, I will give you a golden chocolate medal. But I don't think you're gonna on this one. Um, so yeah, Plagueless Crawl we talked about. Poxwalkers again,
Yeah,
we've talked about. They're going to be even harder to remove, especially for combat armies, especially
yeah,
if Typhus is in there. They're good. They're even cheaper now. Nice to clog up the board. I'm happy with them being 5 points again. I feel that's where they probably should have been anyway.
yeah.
Um, solid unit. Happy with that. We did cover the Demon Princes. We aren't too sure. We need to test more. Neither of us have really played too much with Demon Princes yet. We think there are potential for them. Like I'm interested to try them now, whereas before I just write them off. But I'm not going to talk about a unit I don't know too much yet. So I'll get trying them, and hopefully in the next stream or something I'll have an update for you on that one. Um, da-da-da.
Taliban 45.
Yep, Tallyman 45 points. You're not going to complain if you got points in your list. Slap it in.
Yeah.
It's just 45 points for a CP. Yeah, I took him last edition for the same reason. He didn't go in any unit. You stand next to a contemptor. Rest in peace.
And
Um,
also, you whack him inside the big, your big home, kind of starting fortification, right in the corner. Your opponent's going to forget he's even on the table. He's not run him so low. He's probably not going to get shot.
yeah. And last but not least, Mr.
The boy.
Typhus. Um, this guy was already great. Again, the ability that he has to deal mortal wounds can be done after advancing. It can be done while you're in combat. It can target units that are in combat. It can be done while you're doing actions. It's just basically a flat D6, if not D3 plus 3
It's
mortal
amazing.
wounds. Um,
He's a dread. I killed. I think I finished off or put most of the damage onto to start with, like three Redemptors in a game. Typhus was just like, bam, they're gone. That's the end of your like charged into another, then went in with flat threes. Just yeah, that ability is awesome.
yeah, like flat 3 damage as well, like you said, at strength 9 as well. Him very good.
Yeah,
Again, he gives -1 to hit to his squad that he's in. So if you now take the minus weapon skill, that you're natively -2 to be hit in combat, which is grim because it's -1 weapon skill and -1 to hit, which means they do stack. So people are just not going to want to fight him. Um, honestly, Typhus was already in every list because again, just even if you're not sniping like lone, because you can snipe lone ops as well. But even if you're not doing that and you're just like putting like D6 models on like a tank a turn, that's such good value, and it just adds up and it adds up. So there's
yeah.
you can't go wrong with it really. So yeah, Typhus is a solid pick, and I'm still putting him in absolutely every single list. Do you have any idea of your next army list? Any advice for an army list for a team tournament? Not just yet at the moment. I haven't actually had a chance to do much list building. I've got my current list, and with my extra points, I've basically put in a Hellbrute and a Bloat Drone and dropped the Chaos Spawn, and then put an enhancement in a camera, which I'll probably leave in Plague on something. Um, so that's kind of what I'm working as with the moment. But we'll have a video up at some point with our new list ideas and whatnot, and we can talk through them. Right now, I've not had too much time. Obviously, it only came out today. But yeah, that is the Death Guard changes. So we'll wrap this up fairly shortly because I am boiling because the weather is killing me. But overall, what do you think, mate?
Honestly, couldn't be happier. I generally thought it was like Christmas earlier today. I think we've, as someone is, I've only played Death Guard since I started playing 40k, and that was kind of halfway through ninth or just over 2 years ago. So I've, I had a lot of fun with them at the start of that period. Seen them go through a kind of a week of it. Fine, played in the start of 10th and been like, wow, okay, really got to rethink how I play Death Guard, get out of that ninth mindset. And yeah, this has just given us, like I said right at the beginning, I think we've gone from having two options of a list, of a core list, and then build around it, to now having so many options. And this call, right, and the stuff people have put into the chat and talked about today shows that there are so many ideas and ways of building now that I think we're in the army is going to become even more fun to play. I'm super excited. I'm really hyped for LGT now,
Same.
and just looking forward to seeing what people are now going to walk up to the table versus Death Guard and not just go right slow, so and keep away, or I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the same old thing. Like we've got so many tricks up our sleeves now.
Yeah, I agree. I'm super hyped for the future of Death Guard, and I think anyone that plays the army competitively and wants to put in the time to learn and not just play that play style of standing on objectives and stuff, should be very excited at the potential for all this new synergy, new combos, and the new units that have been given a new breath of life. So I think genuinely we're in for a really good time. I hope we don't become too meta dominant. I don't like playing mega meta armies. I'd like to sit somewhere in the middle, maybe upper middle. But
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes, and obviously we'll see how the meta evolves. There's a lot of other changes to a lot of other armies. So if you're interested in them, go see their like faction specialist people. I'm not going to talk about it. I don't know it. But yeah, the future is bright for Death Guard, and I think everyone that is a Death Guard enjoyer should be very optimistic right now. Um, yeah. Um, but part of that, I think I'm good to sort of wrap up there, mate. I've not got anything else to add at this point. Um, anything for yourself? Anything you want to plug or anything like that, mate?
No, no, not at all. Just to say, as a community, look, we've, everyone's gone through. We all saw what happened at the start of 10th and the way the community overall reacted. This is a chance for everyone to just like share your learnings, like make each other better, and kind of start working some of these combos. And let's work out how to make Death Guard a real force in the meta.
Agreed. And I might as well say it for the people that don't know. So anyone that isn't aware, I have recently became a member, thanks to David's help, of Vanguard Tactics.
I feel like you could say that. I'm going to steal your thunder.
So I'm now one of their players. Hopefully transition to one of their coaches soon to sort of like be helping David sort of deal with the people that will have the Death Guard questions. Um, it's very it's a very interesting way to look at competitive 40k. It's not that I thought at first. There's a lot more emphasis on playing the armies you love and you enjoy over playing the best army. And it's actually been a really cool community. So feel free to get involved. Feel free to check them out. They're offering me a lot of support over here as well. Like again, I've literally stole one of the guys today to come and talk about Death Guard, which is really nice. And it's just cool to be part of a community and sort of again continuing what I'm hoping to do on this channel. This channel's not going anywhere, by the way. Don't worry, nothing's getting like paywalled or anything. They've not made any demands like that. They're totally happy with me. Um, doing this content and helping people because that's what it's all about. So yeah, I'm hoping to keep this going. I hope this positivity sort of reaches through. And if you're interested in that, reach out to those fellas as well because they have the same sort of message, and I think you'd be a good fit for sort of like joining that sort of community as well. But yeah, I think that's everything for now. Thank you very much for coming on, mate, and talking Death
No,
Guard with me.
pleasure.
Um,
Yeah, no problem at all. Really enjoyed it. Thanks
yeah,
everyone. Great to see so many people in the chat and everyone. Yeah,
yeah.
like I said, good list building.
Honestly, insane turnout. Yeah, so we'll get building some lists. We will come back. We'll have a reconvene. We've got some lists. I'm gonna get some games in. Hopefully on Monday, actually come back with some actual feedback and whatnot. And yeah, we'll reconvene and we'll hopefully pick up from there. So thank you very much for everyone that tuned in. Thank you for the people that do donated. That was a bit wild. I wasn't expecting that. And then 126 viewers right now is insane. I hope you're all as excited as I am for Death Guard. Keep positive, and let's keep the positive vibe. Let's try and keep that going. A lot of negativity from the Death Guard community, rightfully so in some aspects. Some aspects maybe taken a bit too far, but let's try now to sort of like go back to the sort of like upbeat community that we used to be and welcome into sort of new players because we are probably going to get some influx of new players. I expect that. We're looking a lot stronger. So let's not call them bandwagoners. I know I made the joke before, but let's embrace everyone. 4 teams got plenty of room for everyone. And yeah, enjoy your night, everyone. And thank you very much again for joining. And yeah, take care, everyone. See you later.